Most of your friends, your relatives, your family, and especially your clients don't realize where they're at right now. They're constantly jumping back and forth their entire life about the past and the future, the past and future. And no one's forced them to look at the reality right now.
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years. Our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
Most people live in a place of what? They're driven by a place or a fear or a level of fantasy. Right? And what that means is most of our clients, and you can watch this, all these people that call in mad, they live in a place of fantasy. Fantasy is driven by what? Greed. No, I mean, it could be. But usually fantasy is a product of what? And once you learn this, you're going to see this in everyone you know, all around you. Keep going.
Company you keep your surroundings.
Fantasies are driven by feelings. And so you'll notice most of your clients are living in a place of fantasy, which is why it makes it very difficult for you to be able to influence them and help them make the right decision. And so the best and the strongest thing I can do as an influencer, as a salesperson, as anything, is take somebody from fantasy and have them to be what? In a place of facts. And so that seems easy, but what do you think drives all these? Emotions. What else? True? Stories. There are stories about how things should be. And so as an influencer, I have to really identify and figure out what are the stories they have, and I got to be able to really understand them, and then I got to collide with them in a way to help fix and help reframe the way they see the world, the way they see the things that are happening. And I got to extract a feeling about that and take them to a place of what? Facts. And so I'm going to take that to the deeper level. And this is all used through a level of comprehensive consulting and learn to how to train people, understand psychology. This is used for coaching people, but it's just as easy to use it to coach our clients in what we do. Everyone around you base themselves, most of their life are based on two things. Number one, the past of how things were. Here's how it was in my last job. Here's how it was in my last industry. Here's how things were before. And they base everything around there, specifically feelings, about how that was then. On the flip side, guess what everybody else does? Where do they live? In the future. Here's how things are going to be. Here's how I'm going to do things. I'm going to crush it. And you see this in real estate all the time, right? I'm going to come in. I'm going to crush it. Be your top salesperson. I'm going to do all this. I'm going to have all this knocked out. And what happens? They die in 3 months or less. Why?
They lived in the past.
Well, they're living in this future without understanding the reality of what? They suck right now. They don't know anything about real estate or sales or influence or any of that stuff, or have a pipeline built. And so the strongest thing that we can do, right, as an influencer, as anybody, is we got to bring them right here to what Austin said is in the present, which specifically is the facts. And so what you'll notice is your prospect, your lead, everyone will bounce back and forth the entire transaction all the way until the end, until the closing table, until they think that someone should actually, pay them before they get out. All through that because they want to believe what they want to be, because they want things to feel a certain way. And so as I can see everyone around me living in this place of fantasy, I know my responsibility as a salesperson to do one thing: bring them right back to the facts. How many times? As many as it takes, right? And so that's the key part, is I got to look at the facts in the present of doing so. And how do I do that? Questions, exactly right. We're going to take them to that standpoint of here's the facts in present, right? We must get clear, and we must clear them of their feelings in this part. I need to use questions of collision. What do you think that means? I like that part. Questions that challenge the way they see the world, the way they see what's going on, the way they see things around me. I've got to make sure I challenge that aspect, right?
Makes them uncomfortable.
100%. And here's the crazy part. Most clients, most of your friends, your relatives, your family, and especially your clients, don't realize where they're at right now. They're constantly jumping back and forth their entire life about the past and the future, the past and future. And no one's forcing them to look at the reality right now. Why do you think that is? Because the present usually sucks. They don't want to look at it. It's ugly, right? So we don't want to get on the scale when I'm not happy with my weight. It's what most people do. They avoid that. Well, I was this. I'm going to be this, right? And so my job is to have to rope them in from both these places. One, I got to identify where they're living at right now. Are they in the front or the back? Are they living in the future? And there's a fantasy of what they can get that's not possible. Or are they living in a place of the past where things weren't even close to being true, like they did in New Jersey 17 years ago. Right? And so I have to look for warning signs through questions, and I got to do what? Ask those questions to navigate right here to what? The facts are right now. Not just the present, but more importantly, the facts of the current present. And so I'm looking for what?
Bring them to the present.
I'm looking for clues of where they're at in the past or future.
Yeah.
Right? They say, well, my neighbor sold his house for $400,000. Even though there's nothing in the neighborhood sold for $400,000 ever. And they're living this place of future that's not realistic. So as a salesperson, I can't get triggered by that. What do I got to do? Stay calm, stay collected, stay in the present. That's why having space and energy matters. And really strategically break them down question by question into the facts of now so we can really fix where they're at and fix their problem. The same exact thing you do from a coaching standpoint is somebody whose life's messed up. Right? It's the same exact thing I want to do to somebody in regards to buying or selling a home and what they need. And that's how I have true influence. One thing I wrote down too, right? If you do not have all the facts, you don't have any leverage. And so I've got to move them here not only to understand the facts, but they believe and look at the facts face to face in the mirror. Now that can get tricky. Why? Because if I don't ask it the right way and go about it the right way, then guess what happens? They're going to get angry. Right? They'll get pissed off at what they do, and that's just something that's important. So number one, I got to be willing to cross-check myself regularly and call myself out my own bullshit before I'm ever going to have the guts to be able to do it to somebody else. That's number one. So if you live in fantasy, right, you're never going to have the ability to influence anybody. And that's why we start around here with the code. Because that's your secret weapon to understand. If I live by the facts, I stop lying, I can see this around me and how people operate. Everyone does this. And so it's really a secret weapon from an influence standpoint on how this works from a consultative standpoint, right? That's important for understanding. And so the other part, too, I wrote down is if you allow people to live in fantasy for too long, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Meaning that they're going to expect that, and ultimately it'll blow up to get to that point in regards to you not working out what you want, right, with your people. Does that make sense for you guys there? Which is important to look at. And here's the other thing you got to help you understand. This is important. I wrote down. This is really just life, but when it comes to your clients, it's important. Until where you are is no longer working, you will not change. You will not go to a different plane. And so what I got to do? I got to help them understand on a deep level about the facts is that what they're doing is no longer working. And it's not going to be working until we do what? Make some changes. And so the only way for me to do that is help them slow down because they want things to be perfect. I want to get the perfect house, this perfect price range, this perfect neighborhood. And I got to first do what? Hit the brakes a little bit, pull them back, and help influence them, go through questions and say, look, here's the facts of right now. Here's your current living situation. You're living with your mother-in-law. You have a baby on the way. Whatever it is. And the facts are if we don't make a decision here and make a jump and buy the property that may not be the perfect one, you're going to be in a much worse situation based on X, Y, Z, etc., right? Whatever the facts are. And I got to be the one that shows that mirror to them through questions, right? And I got to make them look at, obviously, what's the fruit here currently of their past, right? Or what's going on, and bring that to the fruit of now. And what's the fruit here of what they're looking at in the future, bring that back here. And what do you think that means? What's the fruit of the past mean? Pain? Okay. Well, how's that working for you? That's what I'm looking at. Well, how's that working for you? Is that working for you right now, yes or no? Right? That's the key part of what that is. And so that's the key aspect of how I want to break that down because I'm exposing one thing. Right? I want to expose the chasm of those two things where they're at and what they're doing, which I think is super important. I'm going to show you the other thing of how we do that, which is important, is we want to talk about here just the power of those questions and how we do it. How I expose that is I got to get really, really good at asking specific questions in the right order to help expose where they're at. And I'm always going to go back to kind of these same exact things. So I want you to write this down. You must have the courage to ask powerful questions. I must have the courage to ask powerful questions. So if I'm scared, What do you think my level of influence is? 0. That's why most people end up getting run over by a strong personality type, and it's also why you can't sell high-end homes. Because the person that's high-end home, guess what they got? Certainty, they got money, and they got experience. And so if I'm not willing to stand in that fire and have that influence and have those tough questions with them and take them to a place that no one else is, I'm not going to have true influence, I'm not going to have respect, they're not going to really work with me. That's why you get somebody, you get a great $700,000 lead, $800,000 lead, you're chasing down, and guess what they do? They ghost your ass. You know why? Because you don't really compare to the person that they need to be to do what they need to do. And so that's the difference of having the ability and the courage to ask those powerful questions, I think is super, super important. Right? And so the one question I have to ask that I can able to do in my head, that I'm going to find a nice way to ask them is that true? That's the number one way to really understand the difference of feelings and fantasy. And so I'm not going to call him a liar, but I'm going to expose the part and see where that goes. Does that make sense there? It's all a questions game. We got to master the questions here in this regard. Right? So what I got to do, number one, I got to ask powerful questions to connect them to the now. Ask powerful questions to connect to now. I've got to be obsessed with getting to the present. Obsessed with getting to the present. So I'm looking for what? Language patterns, stories, reasons, and ultimately feelings about what that is. And that could be something as small as they talk about how terrible their agent was back home somewhere else. Because if I let them live in that past, what are they going to judge me as? The same exact way. It could also be somebody who's great, right? And so you got to make sure I'm doing what? Bring them to the present of right now, looking at the facts of right now. Somebody bought a house in 2012. It's not the same as it is 2021. And so I got to be able to educate them and get them to that point, which is important, right? I'm going to ask powerful questions to take them to future possibilities. Number 2, ask questions for future possibilities. I'm obsessed with where they're at in the future and what they're willing to go to. I got to be obsessed with where they're willing to go to and where they're committed to going. This is huge right now because the higher I can get number 2 up, the higher I can get the offers up, and the more likely we are to get them to be accepted in today's marketplace. That's the key part here, right? I'm going to use these 2 questions to open up the same type thing here. I'm using question number 1 and question number 2 to open up the chasm. Right? The chasm where they're at, chasm where they've been, how they've been searching. And a lot of y'all miss out on this, right? Because when somebody calls off the for sale sign, the reason I go hard on them, and I'm willing to go hard on them, why? Because I know the way they're searching is it's terrible. And I feel like they have an obligation to do what? Help them get to where they need to be so I can help them get the right house at the right time in the right place. But some of us aren't obsessed with it enough to go hard on them. We let them off the hook. And in their best interest, what's the best for them? To go hard because, dude, you're calling for sale signs in this market, you're done. You may or may not get one, but you got to make sure that you're getting all of them the very minute listed. And so that's the key part here of what we're doing.